chicken yard during the morning and saw tons of feathers everywhere, maybe like a dead chicken or something like that, you may have accidentally killed your chicken using one way or another. And in today's video, I'm going to show you what might have caused that, basically, so you can avoid these next time. Some of these may take a while to set in, and some of these might be like that. You never know what could happen. It could happen right behind your back. So I figured I'd make this little informative video just for you guys. By the way, if we reach 4,000 subscribers before August, as I always say, there's gonna be a big video dropping. Not a big video, a big live stream's gonna happen during the month every day. So I'll see you then if that ends up happening. I'm gonna start off with the really obvious one to start off the day here. And we're gonna start off with one that you may not have accidentally done. And that is giving a predator untapped access to your chickens. Now, it might seem like you might have done everything you could to keep issues out of your chicken yard. However, you may have missed a couple areas. So that's why when we're building our chicken yards here, we always look over to make sure that it's not just like completely, there's not like an area where a predator could get in. So you always need to make sure your zip ties are tight and all that whatnot. And I think it's really important to understand all that. So it's also really important to make sure the chicken coop is as strong as possible. And that's why I also personally don't free range the chickens. But if you notice one thing about this coop is that there's tires on it. You might not be able to see it from here, but at this point you might be able to. Now that's because our chicken coop, if you attach it up to a tractor or the back of a car, you can move it to any location you really want to. So that is exactly why I personally keep these chicken tractors around, because they're really useful. Because if like a predator comes over and it tries to snatch your chickens, it gets one of them, you can just move them to a new location that the predator isn't quite yet used to. I think it's a really cool thing, and the best thing about it is that I could safely pasteurize the chickens. Because a really big complaint that people bring up with pasteurizing chickens is that they're really just in an area for their whole life. But with this, they're still pasteurized, but they're not in the same area their whole life. Number 2 is giving them untapped access to your garden. Now I will say, the garden is a perfect area for chickens to walk in and destroy. But it's also a perfect area for your chickens to get poisoning as well, because you never know which one of these plants are really poisonous unless you do a little bit of research. So if you're gonna own chickens, either like do some research, see which plants you could put in your garden that aren't poisonous, or you could just like keep them out of your garden. Now they are a really smart chickens when it comes down to getting into the garden, but they're oftentimes really stupid when it comes to escaping predators. Like, the way to get out of this situation is so easy for the chickens, but they will still find a way to still get caught. That's exactly what happens here. Like, it might be so obvious to go that way, but the chickens will not go that way. Instead, they'll go the other way. But they're really good at getting into your garden, whether that be flying over the fence or getting through the fence or whatever. So that's why I'd recommend keeping your garden out of reach of your chickens. But in the fall, what you can do is you can remove some of those plants in the garden that are like really poisonous to them, and you can put them in there. They're a good source of fertilizer. If you want to learn more about chickens and gardens, I have you covered with a video up there, man. I'll see you there if you want to go watch that, or if you want to continue watching this, that's all cool. What I see people doing is not allowing their dogs to be away from your chickens. Now you see, if your dogs are near your chickens, that could be just fine if you know they're gonna be friendly, but always keep a close eye on your dog, because you never know when your dog can go crazy or it could just go psycho mode. And if you want to know something, I have a puppy here. Her name is Linguini. She's a little German Shepherd puppy. We got her back in February of this year. And if there's one thing I've known about my little German Shepherd puppy Linguini, is that she will go after the chickens. She once literally knocked me down while I was walking outside, and I have the door open for an average amount of time, which was under a second for me, and she still got out. She chased one of the chickens. But here's the thing, dogs, for the most part, they will, if they're like gonna play with, they want to play with the chickens. They don't really want to like kill them or eat them or whatever. They want to just play with the chickens, which is kind of stupid, man. There's other things you could do than play with the chickens. They like usually either grab them by their tail or they grab them by their neck, which is fatal. If it's by their tail, they might have some minor injuries, but if it's by their neck, then it's wraps. Or you might have a really bad injury that cannot be treated, or you might have a less serious injury that could still possibly be treated, but it's never okay. Well, like, I'd say never try to find out with this. At least keep a close eye on your dog, or keep them on a leash when they're walking by your chickens. That's why when I take my puppy on my walk, I either go up the road or I go on the farm. It's kind of an alternating thing for me personally every other day. But when I take my puppy on the walk, I always make sure to have her on a leash. I don't trust her without it, of course, especially when you're going on the road. Another thing is not telling them where the chicken coop is. Now, I always talk about these when I talk about chicken attacks It's really, really important that when you're moving your chickens outside for that first time, to keep them inside the chicken coop for 2 or 3 days before you actually let them outside. It might sound bad, but here's the cool part about that. This tells them where to go. So when they open up the door to go outside that first morning, they know where to go at night. Now, on one night back in November, we moved out our baby chickens, our baby chickens. These guys were born in April. We had some born in last August. And we moved those guys out in, I think, November. Yeah, late October, early November, sometime around there. We moved them outside, and bam, 2 of them go missing that night because we only kept them in that coop for a day. If it was like 5 or 6 days and they'd know where to go, we would have lost any that night. Some of them just went up to the trees. You might actually remember some shorts I made back then where I talked about how the chickens were hiding up in the branches. Or some of them were just never found again. Maybe got picked off by a hawk or a coyote or something like that. You never really know. And it's sadly gonna happen at least once if you're gonna keep chickens in your farm for a long term. And in my opinion, chickens are one of, if not the most interesting things. However, there are a few times where I believe they're not a good idea. And if you want to learn those times, you can click the video essay on the screen right now, which literally shows you everything you need to know about raising chickens and all the downsides. So I'll see you there.